Welcome. I'm Kinetic Symphony. I hunt down and report on weird and true mysterious stories, from glitches to the paranormal. Case file number 1508, written by Panjialang. Tales from the Dark Southern Estate. I grew up in North Texas, and one of my friends has a cow farm and a lot of land. The name of the street he lived on was his family name. Me and my friends would go out there a lot on weekends, way out on the land far from his house. Bring a guitar and some smokes, and make a campfire and just hang out. One summer night, my friend asked if we wanted to see a haunted house. He said it wasn't really haunted per se, but it was way out in the middle of nowhere and was abandoned. He said he'd driven by it a few times on farm routes, but he never had the stones to go explore it himself, especially not at night. It was one of those times where no one wanted to be the first to say no, so we all said yes. It was a cool, clear night, and we piled into my friend's sedan. We were listening to some good old classic rock tunes, and generally enjoying ourselves. We came to an area where we had to drive over a very old river, which was now a stream. This stream had eroded this patch of land for so long that it had become a very, very steep depression. There was a large plank of wood across the remainder of the stream, making it a flat plain to drive across. Our friend assured us it was safe for the car, even though it looked like the angle was too steep for a car to cross without being damaged. By this point, the atmosphere had changed. We were no longer just hanging out all fancy and free. Few of us were speaking, because we were just looking at the windows. Nothing but dark, looming trees and expanses of moonlit grass. We held our breath as we crossed the stream, and we crossed it. There was a sea change in the way I felt. It was as if I could sense the house getting closer. No one had said a word for the past 10 minutes, other than my friend giving us time estimates of how much further away we were from the house. There was nothing out here, not even a paved road. There was a dirt road formed from cars, but was very old and overgrown, as if it had not been used except perhaps sparingly for a decade. Suddenly, I became aware of something that had been present for a good portion of the trip, but had occurred so slowly that I hardly noticed. I broke the silence. Everything is black and white. I can only see black and white. Everyone else in the car started to freak out because they could only see black and white too. There was no color anywhere, just shades of black like an old photo. Are we dead? I asked. I was convinced we had died along the way, but had not been aware we were dead, like a horror movie. I still have no explanation for this. We pulled up to the house. Color had returned, it seemed, but it was so dark that it didn't matter anyway. The house was 2 stories at a slight tilt, and the face of the house looked menacingly down at us. It was an old southern house, with white pillars that had become discolored with age. Faux balconies jutting out from under the 2nd-story windows. About 50 meters from the house was a large, metallic silo. As the headlights from our car washed over the area, the darkness took its time to leave because it had become so settled there. We began walking slowly towards the house. In the front yard, there were lots of holes in the ground, freshly dug, about the size to fit a small potted houseplant. Inside the holes, we found crumpled up pieces of paper. On the paper were crude drawings, like children's drawings. They were of people, stick figures. Some of the stick figures would be upside down or laying down. Some of the stick figures had faces, and they were all sad or yelling about something. We went to the silo. It was unlocked. We went inside with a flashlight and lit up the interior portion by portion with the beam from the flashlight. It was totally empty and gleamed like polished chrome. It smelled like sawdust and old oats. I swore I heard the sound of a girl crying, but that might have been the sound of the hinges on the door. Finally, we went to the house. The doors were all broken off the hinge. There was a screen door and it was partly torn. We went inside. We broke up into groups and tried to explore the whole thing. We were all trying to seem brave, saying things like, "The thing I'm most afraid of is the floor caving in." There were closets, and we'd hold our breath before we'd open the doors, but found nothing inside. The whole house was completely dark and empty. We only had one flashlight, so there might have been parts that we had missed, but we wanted to get the hell out of there. We got back to the car. One of my friends dared someone to go into the house by himself, to sit in the living room and close his eyes for 30 seconds. He said he would do it. I couldn't believe it. I could never do that. He walked off proudly towards the house. We saw him go inside. The living room was the first room on the first floor, past the foyer, beyond the door. Several minutes passed. We thought he was messing with us, wanting one of us to go in after him so he could give them a scare. That's when we noticed a smell. Something smelled awful in the car. My friend who was driving looked down and saw a dead cat crammed down underneath the pedals. Then we noticed there was cat fur strewn about the car. We freaked out and started honking the horn and flashing the headlights at the house. Our friend didn't come out. Finally, my other friend and I went in after him. When we got to the living room, we found him sitting on the floor, huddled over, his back to a wall with his arms wrapped around his knees and his head buried in his legs. He looked up at us as if we should run away, as if it was too late. We told him to get off his butt so we could get the hell out of there. He pointed at the wall behind us. The lights from the car were still flashing, trying to get us to leave. Each time the lights flashed, we could see it. All of our names were written on the wall in red. Later that summer, a friend of mine went back to the house during the day and burned it down. Case notes are file 1508. Tales from the Dark Southern Estate. That detail about all the color draining from your sight, I wonder how that affected the world itself. Because light is just what color light refracts from or reflects from the objects surrounding us. That's color to us. If an object doesn't absorb red light, then we see the object as a crisp red apple. So if the world went completely black and white, that means the material configuration at the atomic level or the molecular level of all objects in the area was somehow morphed without destabilizing them. That seems impossible. So something drained the color from your mind, your ability to process color. Now that's something entirely different. Something was messing with your minds. That's the clearest example of that. And it was intentional, malicious, as you found out with the dead cat in your car. And the blood wall. Damn, that's terrifying. Going back to burn it down? Correct move. Good job, friend. And now time for the quote of the day. Even if you're on the right track, you'll get run over if you just sit there. Will Rogers. There's another adage that if you're not moving forward, you're moving backwards, and it does tend to apply in life. You want to always be switching things up, taking chances, trying new things out. And if you're on the right track, you find what works. Go full steam ahead. Don't let up. Like the video, subscribe, hit the bell. Kinetic Symphony signing off.